So if you've ever thought, I want a nonprofit, but I don't want a board running my life, you're in the right place. This is definitely the training for you. Today, we're going to be going over board bylaws and governance and talking about what this looks like without giving away control. I know this is a big myth out there and something that people worry about. So if you've ever thought, I want a nonprofit, but I don't want a board running my life, you're in the right place. This is definitely the training for you. Because the truth is, most therapists don't actually understand what boards are legally required to do versus what most people assume they do. And those assumptions are what cause founders to either delay starting their nonprofit, they set up weak governance, or they give away power they never had to give away in the first place. So, we're going to be going through and talking about all of that today. I'm going to walk you through what boards actually control, what they don't, and how to set up your governance in a way that protects you as the founder, because this is your baby. Obviously, it's something that you want to feel like you have control over, and that makes sense. So, for those that don't know me, I'm Dr. Lawson. I help therapists build sustainable nonprofits that pay them well without burning out or feeling like you're losing control of your nonprofit. This training is especially for you if you're thinking, I want the impact of a nonprofit, but I'm not trying to recreate agency trauma at the board level. So, with that said, let's get into it. Today, we're going to cover what boards legally control and what they don't control, the biggest governance mistakes founders make early on, founder protection bylaws and what they actually look like, and then red flags that you need to watch for when you're setting up your initial board. And at the end, I'll tell you how to go deeper if you want help doing this correctly from the start. So in this first section, we're going to talk about what boards actually control. So let's clear up some myths first. Myth number one is that boards run the nonprofit. That is not true. What is actually true is that boards provide oversight, not operations. So a board's legal responsibilities fall into three buckets: fiduciary duty, which is money oversight; strategic oversight, which is really about mission alignment; and then executive accountability. They are there to hold the executive accountable. And so that includes evaluating leadership, but not micromanaging leadership. So boards don't run your programs, they don't decide daily operations, they don't control your schedule, and they don't replace you as a visionary leader as long as you are doing what you're supposed to do and you're doing things ethically, legally, and with quality. So if you've ever worked in CMH, community mental health, you're probably projecting agency dynamics onto boards. And we've all been there, right? Like the dynamics are toxic, they're hard. There's a lot of red tape, a lot of bureaucracy, but it doesn't have to be that way. It ends up being that way in CMH because there's so much overhead and there's so many ladders of hierarchy. So it's understandable that people might project these agency dynamics onto these smaller nonprofits, but it's not an accurate picture of what it really looks like. So the real risk isn't the board, it's actually about bad design. So here's the part that most people don't want to admit is that boards don't take control, founders give it away through poor structure. And so if you ever hear of a board taking over a founder or ousting someone out, it's because they didn't have good structure. They weren't being a good leader and they weren't following through on the mission that they said that they were committed to. So problems end up happening when bylaws are generic templates, roles are not clearly defined, founder authority is not protected in the bylaws, and expectations are based on vibes instead of actual governance. And so the law actually gives you flexibility. And so fear and misinformation are what end up removing that. So I've seen founders kind of delay for years because they think I'll just lose everything once I form a board. And they'll accidentally build something way worse by avoiding structure altogether. So it's really important that you have the right structure and that you understand the actual role of a board. So let's talk about founder protective language in your bylaws. The bylaws are essentially the policies and procedures that govern the board, not the operations of the nonprofit, but the board. And this is where control is actually set in the bylaws. And you can have founder protective governance in your bylaws. So this can include a permanent founder seat designation, defined voting thresholds. It can include clear officer roles. It definitely has clear removal protections. So you can write in there, what are the reasonable removal procedures if you as the executive director needs to be removed, right? There's got to be some line in the sand, and so there's removal protection language that you can put in your bylaws. And then in your bylaws, you want to include separation between governance and management. They're two different things. So founder protective does not mean unethical or illegal. It means clear authority, clear boundaries, and this helps you set up sustainability for the person who's actually carrying out the vision of the nonprofit. And when you step into this, you're not just a clinician anymore, you're a steward of the mission. And so that's what you need to keep in mind as an executive leader. So there's some red flags to watch for as you're setting up your initial board. And sometimes you have to do this in the beginning out of necessity, but just grab 3 friends and figure it out later, right? Before you just grab 3 friends, and if 3 friends are all you have, that's fine. But before you do that, you really need to dive into what the roles are of a board and each board member, and have board job descriptions. And if it's going to be friends on your board, making sure that they know what the job descriptions are and what their roles are. Another red flag is that the board needs to approve everything. They really don't. They should really be only approving strategic oversight, approving your salary, because that includes executive oversight. But anything that's operational does not need their approval. Another red flag is anyone saying you don't need bylaws yet. Yes, you need bylaws from the very start of your nonprofit. And in the bylaws should be written any founder seat or founder protections or removal protections. And then the other red flag is that as the founder, you don't get paid. If you are in a staff role, in an operational role, then yes, you should get paid, and that salary does need to be approved by the board. If you're getting advice that just says like you'll figure it out as you go, or you're getting the opposite advice of like don't do this, it's never going to work, we got to find somewhere in the middle, right? Because you want to have enough information to make good decisions from the beginning, but you don't need to have everything figured out, and you don't have to go the all or nothing route of like this will never work or this is not legal, because it absolutely is, and you can set it up the right way from the beginning. So if you go one extreme to the other, this is how nonprofits collapse and they don't end up being sustainable. So I know this was a pretty short training, and I went over the very basics of setting up your board, but hopefully this clarified some things for you in what a board actually does. And if you're ready to get more information, then I do have a free resource for you. You can also find this in the guide section of this group. If you go to the top of the group, you see guides, click on that, and then click on the first guide, which is free handouts. And then you'll see all the different guides that I have, and you just comment on any guide that you want, and I'll send it over to your DMs. And if you're thinking, I don't want to mess this up, I want to get it done right the first time, then let's definitely talk. I help therapists design and build nonprofits that are legally sound and founder protective and financially sustainable. And I have 2 offerings that I have in my coaching program. I have a full coaching program that's 12 weeks. You get lifetime access to the full course with that. And then I have a done for you package where if you're like, I don't have time to do all this, I want someone to do it for me, the setup, then I can do that for you as well.